Hello and welcome to Spartan History. I'm very excited to do this video today. I thought that it would be appropriate that my first video would cover the topic of Sparta and Spartan society. Now, a lot of people when they think of Sparta, they think of this. Or this.
What? What the fuck?
All right. With all that being said, let's just jump right into it and talk a little bit about Spartan history and some of the things that I've learned over my last couple of years of studies and things that I've come across that I thought that might be kind of interesting for you guys to hear. Now, this is not going to be scripted or anything. I have a couple of notes, but bear with me here a little bit because it's a lot of information, and I'm going to try to present it as professional of. See, I'm already messing up there. I'm going to try to present it in a professional way. So here we go. So Spartan society lasted roughly around 900 BCE all the way up into close to 200 BCE. It was one of the last Greek city-states that was actually captured by the Roman Empire. They were one of the last to hold out, and that was really because they had worked quite a bit with the Roman Empire whenever they occupied places like Athens and Macedonia and places in like mainland Greece. They played ball, and I think the Romans understood how beneficial they can possibly be if they treated them as an ally as opposed to a occupied people. And I think that was the idea behind that. City-states, including Athens for a really long time, who was their rival for most of the time that they existed, honestly. But how did these guys become these chiseled, muscle-bound guys that look like Gerard Butler? How did this happen? So it's hard to mention Spartan society without talking about the process of training that all boys go under. It's called the agoge. Now, the agoge is set up into 3 different phases. I'm not going to go too much into those. If you want to check that out, I'll explain those in a later video. Just let me know. Pretty much what it is, though, is that from the age of 7 onward, you're pretty much subjected to being comfortable with not being comfortable. Your whole scholastic programming, your whole view on life, your whole character revolves around the greater good for Sparta. And what that means for a male child is to be able to fight. Not only be able to fight, but be a good communicator, be an excellent tactician when it comes to strategic strategy on the battlefield, as opposed to like being like a team leader or a platoon sergeant like we would have nowadays. This is more at the line of like what like a commander would be, like a captain in the army, or like maybe like a major or something like that. For the Navy, it would probably be a commander or lieutenant, or a lieutenant commander or commander, something like that. So these guys, again, through most of their adolescence, they are trying their very best to hone these skills. These skills include everything. And again, not just battles, not just fighting, but also ways to articulate themselves. This makes them better correspondents over the battlefield. You got to remember, they didn't have SINGAR radios back then like we have. They have to be able to get out what they're trying to say in a quick, precise way under stress. And you'd be surprised at how hard that actually is in the heat of battle. So they are learning gymnastics. They are learning how to wrestle, obviously. They are learning how to do calisthenics in the proper way. But they're also learning about reading, and they're learning about writing. Not all of them do, but the guys who get up there, usually you have to be pretty high-born to learn how to read. And the women, by the way, they also know how to read, and we'll get into that here in a second.
You know I'm a feminist. You know I believe in female. The only reason why one group of people would ever do worse than another group of people is because of the system.
But these are all things to make them a better soldier, essentially. Things that guys like that are younger, that have seen 300, and they think like all these guys, they just eat raw meat and they do push-ups all day. That's not at all what happened. It was a very well-rounded regiment that these guys abided by. It was very strict. Now, by our standards, it would seem a little excessive, but you have to understand these are hard times and these are hard men. So for you to be the toughest guys back then really meant something, because all these guys were ruthless back then. They all fought really, really tough, including Athens too. Persia, all the big states, they were all filled with tough guys in order to survive. It was a survival thing. It wasn't a land occupied thing more than it was just being able to survive. And no one messed with Sparta, that's for doggone sure. And it wasn't only because of this agoge, this really regimented training that revolved around their muscle memory, revolved around building them up mentally and physically, being tough, making them articulate, making them smart. Now, Spartan girls were not frontline soldiers.
No, sir, I don't like it.
I don't care who tells you. I don't care if Hollywood makes a million movies about it to try. They just were not. People have been trying to uncover proof for that forever, and they just they were not frontline soldiers. Now, they were there in some capacity of support to help win battles, but they did not fight on the front lines. But that doesn't mean that they were not tough as nails either. They were tough girls. Now, the key ideal for women in Sparta was to be great Spartan mothers to the future warriors of this group of people, this cult of people, essentially. And the way to do that is to not only be physically and mentally tough, which is what they usually trained them to do. They had state-sanctioned schools back then, but also to make sure that they are wise and that they understand how to take care of the home whenever the men are out to war, which was quite a bit. So they instituted a scholastic program for women, specifically for them as well, and that also happened whenever they were very young, around 6, 7 years old. They would be taken by a traveling poet or somebody who knew little tidbits of philosophy, and they would typically teach them how to read, how to write, all these other things. Spartan women were actually, for the time anyway, it was a very progressive society in the sense that women can trade and barter their own goods. And on top of that, they could actually run for office. Now, they didn't hold very many office seats, but they could. The opportunity that they could, and own land, by the way, the fact that they could is really, really what's fascinating about that, because that wouldn't happen for close to another 1,200 years in Western Europe, which is phenomenal, and I think that's great. Like their male counterparts, they were expected to uphold a certain value. Spartan society as a whole, what they're meant to do is to not just build these great warriors and then everyone just kind of like seeps off of their energy. That's not what it was. It was everybody did their part, and their part was, it's a utilitarian society in the sense where everything is done for the greater good. You have to be in good shape in order to produce the male heirs that will become soldiers. Male soldiers are expected to become tough and to be men and to not be artists or any of these other things. They didn't necessarily look down on them, but they looked down on the Athenians, and that was only because they were their rival gang. So they just found anything to rag on them about. But honestly, they were doing the same things. One of the most precarious things about Spartan culture, actually, is their metal work. Bronze work was some of the best in the ancient world that came out of Sparta. Bet you didn't know that. People would come from all over to get bronze vases from them, utensils, all sorts of things they would make, and they're actually absolutely beautiful. I'd tell you to go check them out and check out pictures of them, and they're really, really neat looking. They also had great festivals. They partied too, like everyone else. But Athens did all this stuff too, but they just kind of made fun of them because they didn't like them anyway. Also, the whole man-boy thing. I know that Gerard Butler makes a comment in 300 about calling the Athenians boy lovers. Well, there's a lot of boy loving going on in ancient Sparta too. Sorry, dudes, for the masculine alpha male men like me. They were gay to some extent over there, but that wasn't out of the cultural norm. They also weren't Christians. They were pagans, and they believed in Zeus and the ancient Roman gods. They took that very seriously as well too. If you want to check out more about that, Sarah Popley, she writes a very, very good book about it. It's called Spartan Women, but it's not just about them. It's about all of Spartan society. It's very good. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you have any more questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. And I'll see you on the next one. Checking out. Have a good one.